Welcome. Today's podcast, I'm having tea and conversation with my dear friend, Master Ken Cohen. Ken is the author of The Best-Selling Way of Qigong, and we're going to have a cup of tea and a great conversation. Please join us.
Well, it's an honor to be here with you, with all of you, and I just wish my tea room were big enough that everyone who's watching could sit here with us and join us for tea. But I'm so honored to be here with my dear brother, Master Ray. And I want to show you first, Ray, the tea. Now, this is a presenter. Normally, when I'm preparing a particular tea, part of the experience is enjoying the actual sight of the leaves. You know, I'm going to be steeping tea in the teapot, but I want you to see the leaves when they're dry in their natural state. You can see they're quite dark. Now, there's something special about this particular presenter. Perhaps you can kind of see it. Well, I'm going to turn this down a bit. We're getting too hot. Our teapots are overflowing. So this is an imperial presenter. It's carved out of Hawaiian koa wood. I purchased it in Hawaii, actually at an antique shop, and it's modeled on how the tea leaves would be presented to the Emperor of China. So I'm going to present it to the Emperor, to you. Wan Sui, Wan Sui. You know, like they always say in the movies, live 10,000 years. So, so it's a beautiful dragon.
I'm going to give you just a little picture. And
So
if you can
that's
see
hand-carved.
it.
So you can see the leaves in there. They're quite dark. They look almost black, but this is actually an oolong tea. Now, you know, green tea, white tea, oolong, black tea, pu'er tea, it's all the same plant. Sometimes different varietal of the leaf, but it's all Camellia sinensis. You have an unusual varietal in Yunnan province, which is Camellia sinensis assamica. That's simply a larger leaf, but the unique soil and atmosphere in Yunnan, the qi of the land there, will of course give the tea a different taste. Now this one is from the Phoenix Mountains in southern China, in Guangdong. Not far from Chaozhou, which many people believe is the origin place of the Chinese art of tea. And we call it the art of tea, cha-yi, rather than tea ceremony. I know some people use the term tea ceremony, but it's not quite correct because unlike Japanese tea ceremony, which is, it's a beautiful art, this doesn't have an exact choreography. You know, you don't have to hold it with this hand, you don't have to hold the bowl like this and so forth. It's really a way of preparing and enjoying tea to bring out all of its transformative and sensual qualities, to open up your sense of smell and taste. So how to prepare tea to bring those feelings out, and so you can get the qi of the tea, the energy of the tea. Yeah. So anyway, these are the leaves from the Phoenix Mountains in southern China. They won't have a lot of aroma now, but
I still smell it.
if it's steeped correctly, those essential oils in the leaf, they come out. And I mean, this is the quick path to enlightenment. You know, some people say that there's Hinayana Buddhism, the lesser vehicle Buddhism, which is a slower path. I'm not sure that's really true, but this is the story. And then there's Mahayana Buddhism, where instead of taking a raft to the other shore, you're taking a ferry boat, and you're inviting all beings to come and join you out of compassion. And then some claim that Vajrayana, that sort of lightning bolt Buddhism from Tibet, that's it. That's even quicker. So I've coined a new term.
Yes.
Chayana.
Chayana.
The vehicle of tea. The quickest path. All you have to do, why spend 7 years sitting in a monastery? Just enjoy a cup of tea. I mean, isn't there a saying, Ping Chang Ji Shi Fei Chang? The ordinary is the extraordinary. Or in one of the Zen classics, it says, Ping Chang Xin Shi Dao. The ordinary, everyday mind is the Tao.
Wow.
But, of course, the challenge is, how do we so rid ourselves of conditioning, especially the conditioning of our educational systems.
Yes.
But also, I have to say, the conditioning of language, of religion. of culture. Is it possible that we could so rid ourselves of those things that we could experience life directly, immediately, without mediation? I think that's the sort of common ground, you could say, between tea and even Chinese martial arts, where if you get quicker feedback in martial arts than you do in a Zen monastery. Your mind wanders, you're hit in the face.
Yeah.
So,
Punch in the nose is a fast teacher.
so this is it really is a vehicle towards that same wisdom and immediacy, immediate, without mediation. No buffer between us and life. No longer depending upon words and concepts as the only way of understanding reality.
There's that line from the poet Rumi where he says, "Oh God, don't pour the wine into my glass. Pour it directly into my mouth."
Oh, that's it.
That's when you were talking about the tea. I thought just immediate, just forget.
Exactly.
Although I'm not going to have the hot tea right into my mouth.
No, I won't torture you with that.
I won't call you God yet.
But what you mentioned about Rumi reminds me, I think this is a universal teaching in all religions. If we look deep enough, if we look down to the root and the experience behind that spiritual path. There was an author, a Christian author named Thomas à Kempis, who wrote a book called The Imitation of Christ. But to me, the imitation of Christ is not imitating what Christ said, but finding what Christ found. So at that level of experience, not the level of interpretation and language and commentary and all of that stuff, but the level of that direct experience of the mystery. The differences between world traditions, although they are unique and each have their unique beauty and need to be respected as such, but some of the things that we think keep them apart, those boundaries tend to dissolve. Don't you think?
I do. I mean, I dive again into my Sufi training, which is those who taste know.
Yes.
And then once we have the common taste, we might describe it differently, but we know.
Exactly.
And if you don't taste, then sometimes there's confusion and arguments and what it's supposed to taste like instead of what it tastes like.
And how sad that we're in a world where so many people think they can eat the menu, or take a hike on the map.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
So anyway, let's have some tea. Otherwise, we love to talk. We talk forever.
Oh no, we're gonna talk forever because I gotta pull all of this wonderful wisdom and humor and stories.
So I want to show you. I've already put the tea in the teapot, and it's filled about a third of the way. Now this is a type of clay called zisha, literally purple sand clay. And it's found in China and has been used almost exclusively for teaware for about 500 years. And why this particular clay? Because it holds the energy, the healing and nutritional properties of the tea more than any other material. And I always tell people, try an experiment. Prepare the same amount of tea in a porcelain cup and prepare it in an Ising pot, and you'll know what the difference is. And of course, there's a lot of craftsmanship in quarrying the clay, in making the teapot. They're really beautiful, beautiful works of art. And this one I got from a potter in Taiwan, in the mountains, not far from Taipei, about an hour outside of Taipei. For those who know Taiwan, if you go to the Taipei Zoo, and take the aerial tram from there, about 40 minutes or so, maybe it was a half an hour, up into the mountains. That region, the potter is up there. So I just love these. And unlike the Western teapot, where you have a small amount of tea and a lot of water and a long steeping time, this is a pretty large amount of tea for the size of the teapot. So the steeping time is really fast. But in that short steep, you get all those wonderful qualities of the tea. You really get to understand the tea. And of course, you can re-steep over and over and over again. The better the tea, the more times you can steep it. This one will go about 7 or 8 times before it starts to lose flavor and aroma. We can keep re-steeping. So first thing we want to do is just warm the utensils. This is the sort of decanter, or the gongdao bei, as it's called in Chinese, the public pouring utensil. And we after we make the tea, we're going to pour it into this glass decanter. Sometimes they're not always Pyrex. Sometimes they're made out of porcelain or clay, other materials. I like this kind because you'll be able to see the color of the tea. And the reason we want to pour it into here and not just pour directly from the pot is so it doesn't oversteep. Right? So we pour it out and then we pour the tea from here. I do this for myself in the morning, whether it's just me having tea or I have guests, I do it like this. This is sort of my morning ritual. Every day I'm sitting outside here. We're up at 9,000 feet in the Rockies, and I'm outside at dawn drinking tea. I mean, there really is my meditation. I do that before I do my Tai Chi or standing meditation. Or tea first, just tune into nature, enjoy those beautiful aspen trees, the sound of the wind, the sound of the birds early in the morning, see the sun coming up. Feel so peaceful, no thoughts, no worries. Just enjoy tea, nothing else.
I mean, I have to say, you can't see it, but out the window I can see mountains. There's a small river across the street. Really, this is a mountain paradise. So I can just, I love to visualize seeing you out on the front, having a cup of tea, maybe reading, maybe some poetry?
Oh, I love reading Chinese poetry. That I actually do sometimes take out some of my favorite poets and read them in the morning. It somehow adds to the experience, because all this is about experiencing life more completely, kind of getting out of the way and awakening the natural senses that are so atrophied because of the both overstimulation in our society and the lack of use of the normal ways that people interacted with their environment for most of human history. So tea is a path to getting those senses back. So I've warmed the cups. One of them is an aroma cup. Just the shape of it will help to concentrate the aroma. And then the other cup is for getting the taste. Usually you want to get the aroma of the tea first, because that will help bypass the cortex, the thinking part of the brain. Since the olfactory bulbs in the nose that are responsible for the sense of smell, they go directly to the amygdala and to the, you could say, ancient parts of the brain that are involved with intuition and memory. In other words, you bypass that part that's thinking, worrying, getting distracted, and then taste the tea after that. So there's, now science looks at these things and they say, well, that's why they do it. Well, people have been doing this for 1,000 years. They did it because this is what works to put you in that meditative state.
So it's beyond just the smell of the tea, or I usually think of the flavor of the tea, but this is a deeper level of the smell.
Well, it's deeper also in the sense that if it's a great tea, I won't name the popular companies that market tea that most of you know about. You know what I'm talking about. If it's a really great tea, then there are dimensions of aroma. So you smell it, and there's a surface aroma. And then put yourself in the Qigong state, as though you're doing your standing meditation, or you're just meditating, and track what feeling the aroma of the tea is creating. Smell it again, and oh, isn't that interesting? And you go levels. So there are multiple layers of aroma, different time. Maybe you'll have some flower on the top, and underneath those flowers, maybe you smell a little bit. Oh, it smells like irises. It smells like roses, and then you're smelling it some more. Wow, the tea leaves must have picked up some of the energy from a nearby pine forest, but I sense there's a wind blowing through that pine. That's the kind of thing that. So let's have some tea.
Yes, please.
So first we just cover the leaves. This is just to awaken them. Some people say it rinses the leaves, but these leaves have been cleaned already. Nevertheless, we awaken them. Hey, I can already smell the aroma. Can you smell some of that? There's already some aroma there. Now we pour the water slowly. You don't want to break the leaves, that would make them bitter. So you pour it slowly. It's good if you can pour it in such a way that the leaves start to dance. The Taoist priest taught me that. I didn't know that till recently. He said, make your leaves dance. Then I break the air bubbles on top, because those air bubbles also, when you break them, you get a purer taste and aroma. Then, some of these gestures, by the way, do have poetic names, and I love that aspect of tea culture. Bathing the immortal twice. But what am I actually doing? This is the equivalent of creating a tea cozy. You're sealing in the heat on the outside. You're pouring hot water on the outside. So again, there are practical reasons for everything in chai, in the art of tea. It's not symbolic. People might say, well, oh, what does it symbolize when you're pouring the hot water into the decanter or into the cup? Doesn't symbolize anything. I'm drinking tea. It's only it's not for symbolic value. In fact, it's the opposite. To take us out of our chronic tendency to treat everything symbolically, as though something only has worth if it refers to something else.
Instead of just being itself.
That's a kind of craziness. You know, that's always looking elsewhere for what is actually right here. It's like, oh, at the end, there's no place like home. You know, it's right here. So now, oh, look at the beautiful color.
It is beautiful. It's almost like a peach color.
Yeah, peach, like golden sunshine peach.
Wow.
All of that. Just beautiful. And that's also part of the appreciation part of the art.
Yes.
Is every tea looks different. So we pour it into the aroma cup. And I'm going to join you, so I'm pouring it into my aroma cup.
I'll move mine over here so you can see a little bit too.
And this is always a little messy when people are first, learning to do this or not familiar with the particular cups that we're using. It doesn't matter. Water spills? Doesn't matter at all. Make a seal between the cup, the tasting cup, and the aroma cup. So I'm just holding them together. Doesn't matter what hand you're doing that with, just seal it together and then turn it over. You got it. Then lift the aroma cup out slowly so the water pours into the tasting cup.
Oh, I felt it. I felt like the bubbles and...
Then you can put the tasting cup down and take your time catching the aroma.
Ooh. Very sweet.
This particular tea is called Milan Xiang, or honey orchid oolong tea. So it's an oolong tea, but the specific oolong tea, honey orchid oolong from the Phoenix Mountains.
Ooh. Wow.
Now this tea, there's a...
What are you smelling? If you were to describe to my audience, what are you getting there?
Roasted plums and apricots with bark of old trees behind it. At least in this first steeping, I don't smell so much the orchid, for which it's named, nor at this point the honey, but definitely some roasted fruit, plums, apricots, woodsiness, and a kind of balance of, I would say, mountain and earth. Both.
I smell an earth tone,
Yeah.
really heavy earth. Very delicious.
Let's enjoy it. The tea is so wonderful, it makes me more relaxed. I forget that I'm on camera.
It's a lot lighter than I would have expected.
Yeah,
It's a very light...
This is also the first steeping.
Correct.
So as as it interacts with the hot water through successive steepings, usually by number 3 or 4, like this is kind of subtle, it's creeping up on you. By the 3rd time that we're doing this, that's when complete enlightenment occurs, and we disappear from view. You won't see it. I'm only kidding.
We're just going to be nothing but our shoes.
Nothing but our shoes.
Okay. Oh, that's delicious.
Let's have a little more. We don't need to use the aroma cup for the same steeping. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Put it there. Keep drinking this, and then when we do this next steeping, then you really see some difference.
Now, Ken, I've known you for many years. I met you through martial arts and Tai Chi, and later I got to learn, all your other arts, your spiritual arts, your healing arts. Today we're learning the tea art. And as we have tea, I'd just like to ask you a couple questions.
Sure.
Some of them are, I'm putting you on the spot on a couple of them, but
let's chat.
Some of them are hard questions, but I know you've had many teachers in martial arts and, as I said, spiritual arts, and this is a hard question, but do you have a favorite teacher? One that really stood out and resonated with you?
Boy.
I know, it's a tough one.
It's a really tough one, because they're all equally wonderful, and I learned different things from each of them. I mean, from William Chen, from B.P. Chan, from Madame Gao. But I guess, at least in the mood I'm in right now, maybe because also I'm drinking tea, I think of the person who introduced me to tea, Dr. Huang Gongshi. He was a Taoist abbot from Xichao Shan, a sacred mountain in southern China. He was born near the base of that mountain in Xichao village. Dr. Wang, as I often call him, using the Cantonese pronunciation of his last name, was, as I said, a Taoist abbot. He was born in 1910. He passed on in 1999. And, I feel like through Dr. Wang, I was on spiritual pilgrimages in a China that perhaps doesn't even exist anymore in many respects.
Did you study with him in China?
No. I was living in Berkeley, as we say. I was living in Berkeley, California, and I used to always go shopping at a particular bookstore, Shambhala bookstore. Which is one of the great Asian bookstores, Asian-themed bookstores on Telegraph Avenue. I remember it very well. This was in the 1970s. And one day I got a phone call from the manager, a guy named Phil, who was very excited because he said a very rare book on Chinese feng shui that had been published by University of Laos Press. It was out of print, hard to find. He'd just gotten a copy in the bookstore. He knew I was interested in those things, so he said, I want to come up to the bookstore and grab it. So, yeah, I went over to it. And just give me a moment, I'll get back to the story.
Take your time, I know you are enjoying.
Oh, there's this refreshing quality now, like a gentle breeze in a pine forest. And
it's changed so much since just the first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now the chi of this tea, that feeling of the refreshing pine wind, I find it's just spreading. And before the taste was more localized on the palate. Now the taste, the aroma of the chi, it's just smoothing out the chi through the whole body, spreading through the whole body. It's like we just took a walk in a pine forest. Oh, it's wonderful, just great. So I go to the bookstore looking for this rare book on feng shui. As I'm reaching for the book, there's another hand reaching for the book at the same time. This is an elderly Chinese gentleman, dressed impeccably in suit and tie and carrying a cane with a gold top, gold handle. I had heard rumors about a Taoist abbot that had moved to California, that was living there, but I thought, frankly, Americans tend not to know a lot about Chinese culture, and this sounds like a gross exaggeration. No such person could exist. How could there be, here in California, a Taoist abbot who had been a student of Xu Yun, Empty Cloud, the person who was one of the people responsible for the revival of interest in Buddhism in modern China, who was also the director of the Jinghua Martial Arts Association in Hong Kong for many years, and on top of all of that, taught yoga for 25 years in southern China, was a disciple of Swami Shivananda.
Wow.
I thought, Americans exaggerate. They probably don't hear the stories correctly.
Too good to be true.
Yeah, I found that it was all an understatement. That's the person who was reaching for the book at the same time. I deferred to the elder. He took the book, looked at it. He actually, tell you that afterward, he decided not to buy, so I did get the book eventually.
Excellent.
But he looked at the book, put it back, and he said, "Oh, you are interested in our Chinese feng shui?" Taking a chance that he may speak Mandarin, as I found out later, he spoke about 6 or 7 different languages, several Chinese languages, even Hainan Island language, Hainan Daohua, Hainan Island language, Cantonese, Toisan, Mandarin, Hakka, Kujahua, lots of languages, and fluent English, German, and Japanese.
Wow.
So, taking a chance that he probably spoke Mandarin, didn't know anything about him, I said to him, 对了，我对于feng shui特别有兴趣. Yes, I really have a lot of interest in feng shui. He goes, "Oh, your Mandarin is quite excellent." We start chatting, start talking, and he hands me his card, and I realized this is the mysterious Dr. Wong that I've been hearing about.
Wow.
And the next morning, being young and naive, being in my 20s, I thought I could do anything. I didn't know much about Keqi, about politeness or protocol. Probably lucky I didn't get slapped in the face several times by different teachers. But I went to his home at 8 o'clock in the morning. I had his card, right? This guy had mojo. He had some special energy. And the card was just for his acupuncture practice, but on the back of it...
Oh, he's an acupuncturist on top of all of...
Yeah, that's how he made his living. And he was one of the first directors of the licensing board for California acupuncturists. At the same time that Dr. So and Dr. Wong both established the Hong Kong School of Acupuncture in 1941. The very first school of acupuncture in the world was the Shanghai School of Acupuncture, which I think began in 1917. The first one outside of mainland China, as far as I know, was the Hong Kong School of Acupuncture. Hong Kong was still under British rule then. And that was 1941. Dr. So founded it with his friend, Dr. Wong, my teacher. When Dr. So went to the east coast of the U.S. and moved there and established the New England School of Acupuncture, Dr. Wong at the same time was involved in creating the first licensing board for acupuncturists in California.
On the West Coast. Wow.
From the two sides.
Wow.
So he made his living, definitely as an acupuncturist and as a Taoist acupuncturist. So he knew how to project qi through the needle. And that idea of qi projection, of how to sense the energy in the client and how to project qi, that was part of what I learned from Dr. Wong during my apprenticeship. I was his only apprentice during his lifetime.
He had no other students?
No. Well, he had students. But I was the only person that was there at his house, cooking breakfast 3 times a week, spending all day with him, learning from him, hearing all the stories. So when you ask me who was my favorite teacher, I'd probably have to say Dr. Wong, because he was such a mentor of what it means to be a Taoist, what it means to be a spiritual human being, how to have a good heart, how to have compassion in all of your dealings with people. He was just... And he knew the techniques, he knew meditation, he knew so much that, I learned that technical side from him. But more important than that is his example of virtue. They say you have to have wushu and wude, martial art and martial virtue.
Yes.
So he emanated that virtue.
Just his presence, his being.
Just his presence. So the day after I met him in the bookstore, oh, this is so good.
Mm.
The day after I met him, I go to his house, knock on his door, 8 o'clock in the morning, and he opens the door and he sees I've got a bouquet of flowers, a bag of fruit, incense, and I said to, he says to me, young man, can I help you? I said, Dr. Wong, you may remember we met in the bookstore yesterday. He said, yes, of course I remember. How can I help you? I said, well, I know you're an acupuncturist, and if it's not too much of an imposition and you're not already seeing patients, may I come in and offer incense on your altar? Because I see you're also, I looked at his business card, and I said, I see you're also a Taoist abbot.
Mm.
So I presume you have an altar in your home. May I arrange flowers and incense on your altar? He goes, oh, please come in. I said, 10 years I've lived in California, no one has ever done this.
Wow.
This is the first time.
Wow.
He said, please come in. He was so excited.
Mm.
And here I was just a kid. I can't even imagine when I think back to it now why he took this liking to me. I don't know. My fate, I have no idea what it is.
Right.
But he invites me in. He watches me very carefully. I'm lighting the incense and bowing and putting it on the different incense burners. And as I'm doing that, he's explaining to me the altar. He says, well, this is Taishan Lao Jun, this is Lao Tzu, and over here is Guan Yin, because remember he was both Buddhist and Taoist.
Mm.
So over here, that's my ancestors, that's my ancestral altar. Let me tell you a little bit about my uncle. My uncle had no children, so he adopted me. He was a Taoist. I trained with him. And this is true. He started telling me right then and there the different stories. And after I finished the offerings on the altar, he said, well, come into the living room. Let me show you something else. And he was always so proud of the photo of him being decorated by Queen Elizabeth.
Wow.
From the Second World War, when he was using acupuncture as emergency trauma medicine.
Wow.
With the Hong Kong Red Cross. So he says, you see, that's me with Queen Elizabeth. I said, oh, that's wonderful, Dr. Wong. May I take you out for breakfast? Yes, I don't have any patients until later this morning. We have time. Can we go to my favorite restaurant? Yes, please. Which is it? I'll tell you what it is. It might even still be there in Berkeley. It was called the Egg and I on College Avenue. So we went there. I've got a pretty good memory, especially with Dr. Wong. Somehow it's in a certain place in my mind.
Yes.
That I think it's always going to be there. I don't quite understand why this is, but certain teachers, you know what I'm talking about. You never forget. So 2 or 3 times a week, I'd be taking him out to that restaurant or somewhere else or cooking a breakfast. It started our association. He took a liking to me. I just love this person.
Mm.
I miss him all the time. And for those 5 years that I was in Berkeley, and all the years after I moved to Colorado, I would fly back periodically, of course, to see him. And it's not just what I learned; it's how I learned, and the stories of old China, his pilgrimages, the masters that he met.
Mm.
I feel somehow that I was there. So yeah, he taught other people, acupuncture, different things about Taoism and so forth. But I was the only person that had that one-to-one relation. That I was really an apprentice.
I see why you call it that, an apprenticeship. Yeah, it was beyond a classroom.
Yeah, way beyond.
Yeah.
And if there was a great new Chinese movie playing, here he is on the phone. Ken, there's a new Jackie Chan film. Actually, this is true. Snake in the Eagle's Shadow just came out. It's playing at the Mackey Auditorium on UC Berkeley campus. Let's go there tonight. Oh, wonderful, Dr. Wong. I'm so honored. Thank you for inviting me.
Sweet.
So we'll go out to the movies together. When it was his 70th birthday, I'm as old as he was then. Jeez.
Mm-hmm.
So when it was his 70th birthday, he had a big banquet, invited all of his friends and colleagues, but wanted me to sit right next to him. It was such an honor. And it seems these memories, Ray and friends, from so long ago, and at the same time, they just happened yesterday. You know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely. They're imprinted in your heart.
Yeah.
So if Dr. Wong, if a cloud opened up and Dr. Wong were here right now, what would you ask him? What would you talk to him about?
Well, you know what I asked him? Hey, what happens when you die?
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Is it really true that that through Taoist cultivation, as he taught me, the Hun and the Po, the San Hun, Qi Po, the 3 Yang souls and the 7 Yin souls, instead of separating because of your cultivation, your Xiu Yang, they fuse to a unity, and then you die consciously. So I want to ask him those kind of questions. What is there really an afterlife? What happens then? In terms of other questions, that's such a great question, because I don't think I would really have questions. I think all I'd want to do is sit there with him and say, Dr. Wong, I love you. You have helped me become who I am, and you saw who I am. And perhaps the greatest encouragement we can ever give another person is to see who they are and acknowledge that, and,
to be seen.
and act from that place that I see you, I know you. We all want to be seen and known in that way.
Beautiful.
And I felt, even though I was a know-nothing kid, he saw me. He knew me.
I think he would be very proud of you.
I believe he would, actually.
I think
I dare
that,
say
yeah.
I think he would. He would see that the seeds that he planted with his wisdom, I've done my best to nurture. And I'd love it if he could see who I am now. I could just imagine him watching me do tea right now. It's